I just caught on to this.
Call the meeting to order. I'd like to thank everyone for showing up this evening. Let the record reflect that we are absent Cindy Bowie. She had a prearranged absence for this evening. Go ahead and do the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Review of the agenda. Are there any changes?
Two items. If you go down to superintendent's report, and have a comment about enrollment there. I'd like to move that up to just after the financials and call it budget, enrollment, stabilization plan, recovery, whatever you want to call it. And then the second item was, is there had been some discussion, I think earlier this month, 19th if I'm not mistaken, was the forum from League of Women Voters. And I think there was talk about trying to have a local one here. I talked to Dave about it. He would help set that up. So any of the folks running for Sultan School Board would be, try to set up an event where it would hopefully be in person, and anybody running for any of those positions, we could make a gym available or a commons or something. And
We did it in the Commons before.
yeah, we've done it in the Commons before, and because I think if I understood it correctly, only District 4 participated. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's something I'm following up on since that event has occurred. If you went out to YouTube and watched some of the ones happening, good news is our own tech club is the one that is doing it for all of them. Just because they've been real easy to work with and doing a nice job. But I think locally there's a desire to offer some kind of an opportunity to have in-person candidates that would hopefully participate in something like that. And so I don't know how we put that in here as a board item, but that would be an item to discuss here.
We'll do that right before business after Dr. Paul Douglas, the student service director. We'll call that 5 in the presentations. A brief discussion. Any other changes?
That is it.
Very good. There are no other changes. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Any questions, comments about the consent agenda included in our packet?
Nope.
And I'll ask a motion to approve that consent agenda.
So moved.
Any motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to the financial report. Dan?
Good evening, directors. As Superintendent Chaplick said, we'll have some additional discussions about enrollment once I finish the initial report. Be happy to answer your questions. So as far as enrollment for September of 2023, you can see that we received this about a week and a half ago. We got our final counts for the month of September, and they came in significantly less than what we had estimated. For traditional, we are short currently, which is September, 101.04 FTE below budget. For our ALE programs, relatively close, 5.55 FTE below, so a total of 106.59 below as far as enrollment to actual to budget at this point. Typically in October, we do see a little bit of a rebound in October. Last year we had about 15 FTE that changed in a positive manner between September and October. But even with that, we would still be significantly below. So. As far as the property tax reports, again, that I give to you, we're coming up obviously to our fall collection, so we'll start to see those proceeds rolling in here within the next month. As far as the budget status reports that I'm required to provide to you each month for Fund 10, General Fund, this is what we call our initial August By initial August, meaning that I still have year-end adjusting entries to do, so it is not final. I typically will bring you an initial or a preliminary and then a final. So this is the initial and or preliminary. $1,745,421. Fund 20, Capital Projects Fund, there was a correction. The one that you were presented on Friday had an error. It was understated. Caught that error this morning and have, Kayla, I think that up on the screen here, provided you a revised one. The correct value for Capital Projects Fund for August is $1,278,104.87. The error was generated as in August we received our first 2 of the School Construction Assistance Program payments, and that was a new revenue for us, and so it wasn't set up properly to post the revenues, and so I caught that, but I did not catch it until this morning. So anyway, the one you got on Friday was understated. Fund 30, Debt Service Fund, $127,782. Fund 40, Associated Student Body, again, this is all areas, our 2 elementaries, middle and high, $182,378. And Fund 90, our Transportation Vehicle Fund, $391,265. So as I had said, we are at the point where we have the initial or preliminary August. It is not final, but we are done as far as expenditures are concerned, just be year-end entries. So as we look at the various breakdowns of salaries, benefits, and material supplies and operating costs, how did we do? Well, as far as salaries and benefits, we were able to stay within budget as far as salaries and benefits are concerned. We actually were 0.6% below between what we actually expended for salaries and benefits and versus what we budgeted for salaries and benefits last year. So there, that was we felt good about that. Material supplies and operating costs, though, is a theme that I've talked about multiple times over probably the last 6 months as escalation in cost of goods and dealing with needs of a growing district basically kind of took their toll. Initially, we would have been, had we not done a budget extension right at the end of August, we would have been 7.3% above. But then obviously we did do a budget extension, so with that included, we were 4.2% below. And the last one, when we take all areas concerned, salaries, benefits, material supplies, and operating costs, our original F195, we would have been 0.9% above. But again, we did do a budget extension, so with that budget extension included, we were 1.3% below with the budget extension. So I just gave you both values, the original value and then the value as it would have been, or as it was with the budget extension. Excuse me. As far as the fund balance history, again, the preliminary number, $1,745,422, that compares favorably with the estimate that was put into the F195. The estimate for the F195 was $1.5 million, so we're approximately $250,000 above the initial estimate. So that will be a positive thing as we look towards our dealing with how we're dealing with the reduced enrollment factor. And then as we look forward, the 22-23, if that number were to hold, the 1.745 million would be 5.2%. So comfortably above the 4% minimum fund balance requirement that we have with the district. Questions on the financials, the initial August numbers? We'll be moving on to development of the year-end F196. That is due exactly 1 month from today on the 25th of October. I have to have that submitted to the ESD, but I will give you a follow-up at the October business meeting as far as where the final numbers sort out for August for this past completed year, 2022-23.
Okay, I think we can move on to the,
And just a comment on that August number, 1.745, probably end up to 1.9. Fair?
Yeah, 185, 19, we're still not quite done yet, but probably at least 185.
Just as you look at preliminary things. So then the second part of this discussion is the 105 student shortfall. There's no easy way to say that, other than that equates to $1 million to $1.2 million. And so in generalities, look at solving that problem in two phases. First phase will happen during the school year, where we won't spend money on planned expenditures. We will reduce spending on planned expenditures. Positions that become open over the course of the year will not necessarily be replaced, or they might be replaced from inside or whatnot. It's just the reality of operating. And then And we can, you know, we plan on having a plan written out to you by the October board meeting, you know, that articulates how to make up the 1.2 million that's there. Second part would be going into the 24-25 budget cuts. And that's how you do it. Your revenues have to outpace your expenditures or it does not work.
As I discussed with you on the phone, and I think a little bit prior to that, as quickly as we can respond and stop the state from paying us too much, and I know October probably before we get an accurate count, but so that we're not backfilling in the second half of the year. Any questions, comments? As soon as you can come up with details of obvious plans, the board needs to be aware.
We've discussed some generalities. I have looked through and made some recommendations. Some certainly would be easier than others to accomplish. But yes, we will work actively towards getting specifics for the board before the next meeting. We'll have to discuss at the next meeting.
And so, as far as the enrollment goes, what we will do is we will just change the budgeted enrollment. That's really what you're talking about.
Yes.
So we will let OSPI know that when we write a budget based on a particular number, well, they pay us that way until January. And if we're under that number, they make up for it after January. If we're over, they take the money back. We're just gonna level it out and say, hey, you know, we had a group of kids that didn't show up and some other enrollment anomalies going on, and we need to adjust this to a more correct number.
Questions at this time from the board? Okay. I guess I was so eager to get to that bad news that I bypassed Jeff and Brandy and Sean and the others that would like to speak this evening. So we'll move back to the public comments, and Jeff, you're first up.
And here, I thought you just wanted to skip me or make me wait till the end of the meeting.
No?
Actually, I thank you, I appreciate it, thank you, board and superintendent. I wanted a chance to talk about the school expansion ahead of the Capital Facilities Advisory Committee presentation by Ben and the rest of the committee. I'm Jeff Estes, I'm resident of Startup. And I just wanted to mention a few things kind of from a community taxpayer kind of point of view, and then give Ben an opportunity later to make any corrections or have any responses to that. The school district and board, you know, we're really fiscally responsible to the community, you know, with budgeting and spending taxpayer monies. You know, and one of the things I noticed on this plan was, you know, the difference between the adding and remodeling costs per square foot and the versus a whole new building. You know, it's $114, $124 per square foot difference, I think. Dan mentioned attendance, and I kind of questioned the 10 kids per 6 households, which is a number provided by the developers. I think that's a little bit higher than the ratio that the school district used when we were considering raising impact fees a while back. So I'm curious if we ever got the OSPI's projection on that. I'm confident, though, that our enrollment's going to increase. So I think if the more kids are going to be coming into the schools. SCAP funding, you know, we should definitely make sure that that's prioritized and utilized to the fullest possible. And for some reason, I just feel we should use it while it's still available, you know, while we still have it. I don't know, in 10 years or 15 years, things might be considerably different at the state. Escalation costs, although helpful, they should be really considered for long-term, 10, 15 years out, and not necessarily be based on making intermediate capital decisions, because we know the economy goes up and down, and assessed values, of course, go up and down. In my opinion, you know, I'm favoring the modular construction or a hybrid modular construction for the new elementary school. I think it'll impact the construction timeline, so we'll get a school built that's usable faster, and it'll reduce costs and escalation costs as well. I think it's just, you know, the way to go for the new school, and I think it would better serve the community if we can get something built faster. We needed it last year or the year before. The tear down and site costs of the old bus barn, you know, boy, I'd like to see that put out to local bids. I think some of the local contractors would probably tear it down for free. And maybe any cost savings could, you know, go towards any remodel we need to do here in the 5th or 6th grade campus. Any impact fees that, you know, we've had them shift over to the bus barn, you know, it would be nice to make sure that those are accountable and allotted for this new expansion and growth. And one thing I've promised some teachers and office staff, that if wherever possible and feasible, if we could budget and put in some mini duct HVAC systems at needed classrooms and offices. You know, those things can be removed, they can be repurposed. It's not a one-time, you're throwing the money away. I think that would definitely improve the quality of the work environment as well as for the students in some instances. The Capital Facilities Advisory Committee, you know, we had a responsibility of representation of the community. And I think we should continue to be able to oversee, advise, and make decisions relating to the design, the construction, and the budget for this school expansion.
Jeff, I'm gonna give you one more minute.
I'm almost done.
I agree with almost everything you're saying. but-
All design proposals and floor plans of this school district project, we should make sure that that's available to the public. We really need to build up some trust in the public in order to get them to pass this bond. And we should also make this available to the CFAC for oversight and approval. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next up, Brandy.
So notice I didn't come with an agenda item, I'm just here to talk real quiet, or real quick, apparently. I'm just here to represent the health science programs at Sultan High School and extend a huge thank you to the board for what they did to make sure technology got into our classrooms for this year. We hustled our buns off and worked with the vendor and received that anatomage table at the 11th hour on the 29th of June. All funds that we were able to get through grants and donations and everything were usable. We didn't lose anything. And I had kids coming in over the summer that wanted to see it and study anatomy. I don't know how many teachers can say that, but it was a pretty cool thing to watch. Every single health science student that is in my classroom has had a chance to look at it and use it already in the first few weeks of school. And literally, if you are looking for a way to get a freshman class to quiet down and listen, this is it. The second I flip it on, it's like instant engagement. Some of my students took their first quiz on it today. How was that?
It was great. It was actually amazing. It's so much easier to look at like what everything actually looks like and not just like some poorly printed diagram. And it's a lot more interactive too. You can move it around and look at everything a lot easier.
See what everything actually looks like, colors, like not material, but like the texture of different parts of the body.
So they're really actively using it every day. This money was money well spent. And so from the bottom of my teacher heart, I want to thank you for that. And we have something for you. So go sprinkle. A ton of my health science students sat down and wanted to let you know how they felt about this new technology. Please share these handwritten thank you notes with every board member. I would really love for you to look at them. I read them, I had to stop a couple times, I got a little fussy. I'm very proud of their articulate way and the way that they felt they needed to express thank you to the district for their support. And what we'd also like to do is extend an invitation for all board members to come on into the classroom and watch it in action. Oh, it's so cool. So we were talking today in classes and we were hoping to extend an invitation for Thursday the 5th of October. We'd like to invite you to come on into the 7th period hour, which if you were there about 1:30 p.m., that'd be best. And my students will be prepared to really show you some cool, engaging things that this table does during that hour. We're going to get your fingers on it. We want you to look at it, manipulate it, ask questions, and it's going to be a student-led thing. So they're going to show you how it works, and they're very excited to do that. So again, I'm extending the invitation for October 5th. If you can be in my classroom 404 at 1:30, that'd be great. Kids walk in the door and we start at 1:38. Then there was the question that was immediate when I walked in the door, so it was the last thing I was gonna ask. I was crossing my fingers that the educational jamboree would be at the high school, because we just don't think it's a really good idea to push that giant beast down the road to the middle school. So the next time the jamboree is at the high school, we'll show it off there, but we will have some active video playing behind us on a big panel so people can see how it's being used in the classroom. Believe me, I already have lots of it. So, thank you. Anything else you guys want to add?
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think all
you.
the boards, it was on the same page. When a program makes us so proud, and we know how hard you worked to provide that tool that will make you even better. It was a pleasure.
It's amazing.
It looks
Anybody can
great.
come in and see. I'm in room 404. Door's always open.
Looks great in your classroom.
It barely fits. And I don't know where these small numbers came from, because my classroom is 31 pushing 32 every day in that little space. So I don't know where those numbers.
Thank you, Brandy.
Yeah.
Sean Rodlin?
So, board, Mr. Chaplik, I'm here as part of a group. There were 16, I believe, of us concerned parents of our girls' soccer team that met today with Mr. Sifferman and the head coach, Aaron Burns. I'm mainly here today just so that it is on record that we did have that meeting. The communication with them included things that were pretty much from coach or coaching or lack thereof, all the way down through the school mission statements, sports philosophy, sports camaraderie. Just to let you guys know that there are issues that are happening. The order of escalation has been initiated from student to coach, now from student to coach to athletic director. Also in attendance with us, we had asked Byron to be there as well, just as somebody to listen, not part of any communication, but for me, as one of the concerned parents of one of the students who plays on the girls' soccer team, I just want to make sure that that's on the record. We did hand and give Mr. Sifferman a packet of questions, and we went through these. We met with him at 5 o'clock today, and we were there for probably an hour, had good discussion. I thought it was productive and constructive. And they are going to go through those questions, and we've set a date for 2 weeks from today to go over those, hopefully answers to those. And if we don't have those, then we'll just continue that escalation process as it's set forth and bring in Ms. Whitmire-Skeeth into the process. But for me, I just wanted to make sure that you guys had this on record, knowing that there is something going on with that program. And then I also have a packet for you guys. I didn't have one for each and every one of the board members, but maybe you guys can scan that.
You'll get a turn, she'll get it to us.
And get
Does
that
this
into-
include the questions?
This includes the questions.
Very good.
Yes. So. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
And if you could get that to us tomorrow, that'd be great.
I want to go back there.
Not Cuba.
You guys got the table off
Yeah,
over there.
can we go over?
All right, good evening. I just wanted to talk about a policy that I don't even know if it's a district, school policy, high school, middle school or not, but as a teacher at the middle school last week and as a parent of a middle school age student and as a coach, I felt like every day last week I was bombarded once, twice a day with either announcements, texts, emails, letting everybody know at the middle school you're not to be at high school football games without an adult or without a parent. To the point where it got to Friday and I had kids because we were trying to get our middle school football team to go and watch the game. And my dad can't go, my mom can't go. Can I still go to this game? Because we were going to do part of the tunnel and they were going to wear their jerseys. And it got to the point where I said, hey, show up at 6:20 and I will walk in with anybody who doesn't have an adult. And I probably had 7 or 8 kids who came in with me at that time. I know there's been issues in the past with supervision. I know there are things that pop up at the games, or there are kids there that aren't watching the football games, and they're causing havoc, and I get that. I feel like as a district, we need to come up with a way for the 4 or 5, I guess 6 times this year that we have a home football game to make that work. Like, we shouldn't be limiting the amount of kids that are at those games. We should be trying to find more ways to get kids there. We talk about equity all the time. I can tell you, the kids who can't get an adult there, those are the kids who we need to have at those games. Those are the kids who we want them to see what that program looks like or what that game looks like, so maybe when they get into high school, they want to play. If we don't have them there, they're going to find other places to be on a Friday night where there's not people there helping them make good decisions, let's say. So I really feel like we need to reconsider that policy and come up with solutions for how to make it not be an issue with the supervision. I was at a volleyball game tonight at the middle school. A couple of the freshman girls came down to watch some of their friends play. They were told they had to leave because they didn't have an adult with them. I know as a middle school coach, we're always asking high school kids, hey, come down, be part of the program, come in and cheer on our kids, make them feel like, hey, when I get to high school, I'm going to be part of you. And to me, when it's the first game and they want to come down and watch and they're asked to leave, that's a bad look. When we are going to talk about passing a bond, these types of things are bad looks to the community when we are not reaching out to try to get more people there, not restricting people. That's all I got.
I think we need to find a way so that those kids, like you brought in 6 or 7, in my way of thinking, you're now responsible for those 6 or 7 that evening. I know you would take that obligation on. This isn't just a school problem. This is, you pointed to it kind of sideways, but this is a parenting problem too. I know it's been a long time since my daughters went through the school system, but they missed very little things, and sometimes we had 4 or 5 tagging along. And so this is a community fix. We can't just have anybody can come to the games because of past transgressions we've had, and it's everything from young people with alcohol and other events behind the, I mean, you've been around this high school a long time and you know it's a problem. So we do have to find a solution. We don't want to ban anybody, but we need to have some supervision there. And we don't have enough staff to watch if 65 6th through 8th graders show up and they're all going a different direction behind the stadium. And we don't want to tell them they can't have fun at the games. I know some districts have areas where kids can throw the football and others don't have that. I know a lot of districts have this exact policy. When my grandchildren go to school, they have this policy. You can't go without a parent. Fixing it isn't on Facebook though. This yelling match that everybody gets into on condemning the school district. We want to work with people, but social media isn't how you fix it. It's in meetings and when people get together and get parent groups and get teachers groups. I'll volunteer to come. I was at the last 2 games sitting at the top with nobody to watch. But those methods.
I guess I'd like to know what has been tried with the community to try to make this happen.
Well, we've had years where we had those kids behind the stadium and nobody's watching it, or we let anybody in.
No, I'm not saying, I don't believe this is, again, the kids that don't have a parent there, that's not their fault.
No, I don't.
And those are also families that don't have the network of other parents to ask, hey, can they tag along with you?
Well, if they're one of the football kids, they certainly do, because you're a team. And the team can, there's a parent group in every team. Am I mistaken in that? You have parents?
I think there's less in a middle school setting, but I get where you're coming from.
Don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
The solution isn't just to open it up. The solution is to find ways to get those kids in with adults supervising them, because unsupervised, that doesn't work. If you're volunteering to watch all of them, you're signing yourself for the responsibility of those kids. And when we let them in, we're assigning ourselves responsibility when they're running all over. And we only have so many administrators, and we only have so many sheriff's officers. And ultimately, we want to make certain they're safe and ready to go to school on Monday morning after that Friday night game. So I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I'm only speaking for myself, but we have to find a happy medium. And I don't think discussing it, yelling at each other on social media is the answer.
I don't think bombarding kids all week with you can't come to the game is solving anything either. So yeah, I put it on Facebook. I didn't go to the community group. I went on my own personal page. I was frustrated because I heard it nonstop all week. And when I have kids coming up to me saying, hey, I can't go to the game, it's not right.
We have to let them know all week, because those parents that won't go are just going to drop somebody off in the upper parking lot.
Here's the thing. The parents who are going to pay attention to all those announcements aren't the parents we're worried about. Those parents are involved with their kids'
So
situations.
how are those kids without parents at care getting there?
I know we got kids over here in Housing Hope that walk to the game whose parents aren't there. So we gonna turn them away? Are they gonna
No,
go to
we-
Hoot Owl? They gonna go to Osprey?
So we shouldn't announce and let them know we could have an unsafe condition if there's no children's supervision there? We have to let people know. In fact, what we're usually found guilty of by the court of public opinion is we don't let people know enough. I didn't know there was this going on. And honestly, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying we have to find a way to work together instead of working, look at what that school district is doing to our kids, because that's not the intention. We have to find a way. Sounds like you know everybody in the community, you have this vocal group. Get a group of volunteers that'll meet in the upper parking lot and take 5 each, and we'll let, if you have 20,
We had a
100
big
kids.
meeting with the Community Alliance. They're full of volunteers. Did
Good.
anybody in the district go and ask them if they were interested? Crosswater Community Church does a lot with the district.
Those are all
They would
great
go and ask
ideas.
them.
Do that instead of yelling at us on Facebook would be my advice.
I'm just asking us to be proactive and not set policies where we haven't even asked the community for it.
First is make certain kids are safe, and then we'll discuss it and figure it out, and that's what our principal tried to do.
All right,
I'll be happy to take calls and have any meeting with any group of parents about that issue.
all right.
Whitney, and I apologize, is it Quilton?
It's Quillen. I was here with the soccer parents, but I do just have one thing to add if I have to walk all the way up to the podium.
Thank you, Whitney.
So we did all request that meeting. I did ask for Dan's presence. I called and talked to your office on Friday. I still haven't heard back. We did ask for a counselor to be present. There wasn't. This is becoming a mental health issue. It's not just players don't want to play issue. It's kids coming home crying, mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, getting talked down to in their sport. Lack of coaching, yes, but mental health is key here too. The philosophy is not being followed. So in the next meeting, I would really hope and ask for your presence and a counselor's presence. But I think that the meeting hopefully went well, I'm not sure. And if you could follow up with me, I would appreciate that too.
We'd be happy to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
And to Sean and Whitney, I don't know if the other, I knew nothing of this, so I look forward, that's maybe not the way to put it, but I look forward to finding out what's going on.
Yeah, and Sean brought up really great points, and I think the meeting hopefully went well, but I think with a few more ears there, we would have been really heard. And there was, 16 of us in the meeting, and when you have over half the team there, parents concerned, we're not coming from a point of confrontation or argument. We're saying our players are not being heard right now. This is what's happening. It is the trickle effect of the administrative director of the sports teams, coaching, everything, and it's affecting over half the team, and half the team is ready to walk at this point. So what does that say for this Sultan High School sports team of soccer? What does that say for the district administrator of soccer, Sifferman? I don't know if he called and talked to you. I don't know if he actually reached out to the counselor and asked for a counselor's presence. At this point, I highly doubt it, which is really discouraging as a parent. But mental health is huge here, especially for these kids, and soccer is supposed to be fun. It's a sport, it's an extracurricular activity, and these girls are getting beat down every day.
Yeah, I did talk to him, just to let you know. I had this message to go to a meeting, I knew nothing about the situation, so I called him and talked to him about it to figure out what's the appropriate way to handle it. So I did do that.
Perfect. Well, we did ask for another meeting. It sounds like it'll be in 2 weeks. I hope that you can attend. I hope that.
I will call you and follow up.
Yeah, I hope that the counselor can attend, and we just hope for positive progress, right? We want our kids to have fun and enjoy their sport, and that's the goal here as concerned parents. So thank you.
It's very important. It's been a crazy week with enrollment, but that's no excuse.
Yeah.
And the board will read, and if we need to be involved, we will. Hopefully we can get it sorted out with that level of intervention.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, I have no one else signed up to speak, so we'll move on to the agenda. Next up, I believe is presentations from the CFAC facilities presentation. We have Dan, Ben, Zach, and Heidi.
Yeah, so I've seen several members here. I want to first introduce Ben Fields. He's from McGranahan Architects. Probably last May or so, we brought Ben in as a consultant as we were working on the charge the board had given me back in, I think, February to revisit this. And so Ben, as an architect, was able to bring some things to us that we as a committee were struggling with: cost, different ways to look at facilities. McGranahan has done a lot of work over time on Sultan facilities, and so it made sense to do that. And within here, I see several folks. If you're on the Citizen Facility Advisory Committee, let's just raise your hand, we'll introduce you real quick. So we've got Jeff Estes, he introduced earlier, he was on there. Charlie Weaver, District, Heidi Dawson, Mike Barnell, Jared Skeef, Dave Chidster, and James Leake. Who else? Braun Journey, Marianne. Did I miss anybody?
Yes, Kim. I'm Christine Olson.
Christine Olson. Sorry, I didn't see you behind. Sure.
Dave Moon.
And Dave Moon just walked in. And so and Dan Ballard, I think, has participated some. So they're gonna, Ben's gonna kind of present where we are, and so for and Zach and Heidi, I think, were the two among the group that agreed to really play a prominent role, and I think how this builds into getting members of the committee to help speak about our work will be, really up to them. But I'll go ahead and cut them loose and let's go from there and share with where we ended up.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, and thanks, everybody. And during the presentation, if you want to stop me and ask questions, that's fine. If you want to wait till the end and have a discussion at the end, that's fine too. It's completely up to you and whatever your preference is. We can go to the next slide. We're going to do a really quick welcome, and then the CFAC is going to have that quick recap. We're going to bring a couple members up here to tell you what we've been doing and get their perspective on how things have been going. I'll introduce my firm McGranahan with you and let you know kind of who we are and what our history is. Then we'll go over some bond considerations, what we want to look at to ensure that your community has a successful bond campaign. And then we'll dive into some potential bond costs and solutions that the CFAC is starting to refine. And then again, there's that question and answer period, but don't feel like you need to wait for that. We'll go to the next slide. We'll have the CFAC committee members come on up.
Some of us are slower than others. Go ahead. Don't make me hit you with these.
Would you like to go first?
No, go ahead.
I go by Zach. We started, I guess, back in May and spent, some 30 hours or so touring schools and all the different facilities in the district, and also talking with Ben and some other partners about bond options and schools. And I feel like we spent a fairly good amount of time evaluating a lot of different options. And one of the things that really stuck out to me personally, I think we can all agree that the state of our facilities are in pretty bad shape. We have a couple of really big things we need to address. Number one is just the state of the facilities as they are right now. And the other one, which is probably even bigger, is the dealing with the growth that we expect to be coming and how we're going to deal with that. So I feel like we did a lot of good work. There's some proposals that Ben will outline here in much greater detail than I can do. And I feel pretty confident that we've kind of settled into some narrow pathways for choices moving forward that will address some of the issues that we're talking about.
I agree with all that. This is my second round with the CFAC. We were on the first one for the levy. One of the issues we come to with this is when we're building a new school or moving kids around is where are we going to house them when we're building a school. So when you look at some of these ideas that we've come to, or you see them up here and we're talking about them, about shuffling schools or building new schools, don't think that we didn't take it to heart and really think about those things about where we're going to put kids as we're working on a school, because you can't just, like, if you look out here, there's so many portables. So you can't really just build a new school here out there while the kids are in here, because you have to we have more,
Unhoused.
Thank you, that's the word, unhoused students than housed, so where do you put those kids while you're building a school? So when you're looking at the proposals that we have and the thoughts that we've put out there, that those are some of the reasons that we're looking at the way that we're doing things, and that we're not just doing a one-phase thing, we're looking at it for the long haul. So we've kind of come to like a three-phase process where we work on the elementary schools first, and then you're working on each school as those gap funds become available. And we're really taking it into heart, trying to get the biggest bang for our buck and make sure our kids are housed and that we look at the big picture. So I guess that's kind of
Yeah.
you said a lot of good things, so that's the other part of
Same
it.
as you.
Right.
Thanks.
It's a lot of information.
It is.
All right, thank you. So I just want to add one piece to this that you won't see in here. When we came up with an initial idea of projects that really needed to be addressed, the high school was part of this. And part of it is because there's, I think, $12 or $13 million of SCAP, School Construction Assistance Program funding support. And our situation at the high school hasn't changed. It's maybe actually even gotten worse. We have more kids outside than inside in portables. But through the investigation process of looking at how you can use the SCAP funds, you can't use that money unless you do a remodel of the school. If you do a remodel of the school, the bill becomes so exorbitant that you can't get anything accomplished. And so what we're doing is that what I'm doing, and as part of the plan of this group, is on the 18th of October, I think it is, I'm meeting with legislators, some WAMOA representatives, an architect or two, and some OSPI folks, and we're going to tour this school and Sultan High School. And part of the idea is to talk about a distressed school kind of a approach, so that hopefully we could get some legislative support to maybe write something into the budget, because inherently one of the challenges in a community like ours when we're trying to do these projects is the cost to us is more than maybe other communities, yet we have the same needs and the kids deserve the same things. And so what are some creative ways that we can offset that? And that's what we're trying to do. And so that's going to be a work in progress, but I wanted to mention it because it was a prominent part of our discussion. But you won't hear about that part of it tonight, even though that's at work behind the scenes.
What time is that meeting?
It's from 10 to 12 on the 18th, and I think board members are invited to that as well. So the 18th, I believe, is a Wednesday.
Let office know if you're planning on attending, because if we have three, we have to announce those.
So sorry for that little bird walk, but go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, another thing too to mention, like when we looked at plans, we had plans in place, we had ideas, and then something like that comes in where we had an idea for the high school, and then all of a sudden our funding source or thoughts falls through, so we have to readdress. And one of the big things for the committee was making sure that every school is touched and addressed and upgraded, but sometimes that's not always the way you think it needs to be, or in the pathway that you think it needs to be in the fastest way. So we've had some very interesting discussions about what needs to be done first, how it should be done, where it should be done. So sometimes you look at all this on a screen, you don't see all that backstory, but there are some very, very good discussions and very intense discussions and very enlightening discussions about how this all comes to pass and fruition.
More to that point, and I'm sure the directors are aware of this, more so than I was at least anyway, that's what such a labyrinth of funding structures and rules. I expected it to be complicated, but not near as complicated as it was. So a lot of the things that seem to make sense on the surface don't pencil out when you kind of dig into the details. So a lot of things seem counterintuitive sometimes, but there's a lot of good reason behind it, and it really just takes some time and effort to understand that. Did for me at least.
Yeah, and that's something that we need to work on too with educating
Communication,
our community and everybody else. Like, we get the gist of it, but it took us a while to understand
30
those.
plus hours of talking with Ben.
Yeah, and so we have to figure out how we're gonna get that out to the public in a condensed, well-written,
digestible format.
Yes. So.
Thanks.
Thanks, Second Committee.
Thank you.
All right. I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the super quick note version of what we've been up to for those last 30 hours, but I'm gonna start with who we are as a firm. So McGranahan's been in the Sultan community since the late 90s. We've worked on most of your projects out here, not to some extent or another. We designed your play structure, Gold Bar Elementary. We've been in business for 55 years. We've got more than 350 K-12 projects with more than 50 school districts. We are hyper-local. We only focus on school districts within an hour-and-a-half drive of Tacoma. So we make sure that we are always doing work in our community for our community. 98% of the work that we've done over the last 20 years has been educational facilities, and 75% of that work has been for repeat clients. We'll go to the next slide. And we believe education transforms individual lives and society, and that thoughtful architecture fosters meaningful learning, and collectively our firm is dedicated to the creation of inspiring learning environments. So all the architects that work at McGranahan have a passion and a desire to see educational architecture in our communities, supporting students, staff, faculty, and families. Next slide. So, what did we need to do to craft a bond? We started out by looking at what a community needs to know. We wanted to talk about what projects need to be proposed and why we want to go with those projects. We talked about which projects could be done and when, and then what they're going to cost and what that cost means for a tax rate per thousand. Next. So we knew that going into that we needed to define the project scope at a conceptual level, and the further we could define it, the less risk you had. Inversely, the further we go, the more cost you incur in the planning process. So what we did is try and find a happy medium where we could reduce your risk without increasing your planning costs exorbitantly. And we developed a conceptual plan. We're still working on that. We're developing a conceptual schedule, and we're developing a conceptual cost model. We'll bring all of those to you guys for your consideration when that's finalized with the CFAC. Next slide, please. So this is our preliminary schedule. As you were told, we started meeting in May. We talked with bond counsel. We got a small works cost estimate. We got large works cost estimates. We've talked with a variety of consultants and tried to get a lot of information that we could funnel off to the committee to allow them to make the best decisions for your community as possible. One of the things that we are still waiting on is a better student demography and projections. That should be coming in, I'm hoping, in the next few weeks, but we still need to double check on that. But for right now, what we're shooting for is we need to file the ballot with the county before December 15th. Prior to that, there needs to be 2 separate board readings of the measure. So if we are able to wrap up our work, present to you, and have you accept in late-ish October, then in November, we will have you, give you the ability to make those public readings, and you'll be able to file in December. And then that will set you up for the next 2.5-ish months to be working with your community on that bond issue. Next slide, please. So we know that these aren't the best numbers. They're not spot on, but these are the best that we have right now. We're observing that there is some amount of kids per household. Right now we got from the realtors that they're seeing 10 kids per 6 households. What the grade breakdown is, whether that's accurate or not, we need to figure that out. That's what Flow Analytics is really going to help with. They're going to give us projections on every single grade level and banding so that we can see even matriculation rates of how the kids are going to move through the school. What this slide does show, though, is that you guys are growing, and you're growing at a pretty good clip. And the schools are going to need to respond in some way to meet that future need. Next slide, please. So we're going to look at OSPI matching funds. This is called SCAP sometimes. It's what the OSPI is willing to give you for your construction projects. There's a pretty in-depth formula behind it. And we need to note that not all SCAP funding available to the district aligns with the identified bond projects or the current district needs. Like Dan said, the high school, in order to access that $12-ish million for the high school, you need to renovate 100% of the high school. That becomes pretty impractical pretty quick. Next slide, please. These are a couple of general cost numbers that we've gotten from our cost estimator in your area. He was looking at a variety of projects. Elementary school new around $450, middle school new around $496, modernizations for elementary around $340 to $372. Next slide, please. High schools about $450 and $340 respectively for new and for modernization. Next slide, please. All of these numbers are in today's dollars, and all of those numbers are building only. So they don't include any site work, they don't include taxes, they don't include permitting, they don't include soft costs like engineering fees. So I want to just make it really clear that that is only the construction, the building, what it's going to cost to put a building up, and then there's higher fees around the site and all of the soft costs. And then on top of that, all of that gets escalated year over year. So you can see on the right-hand column, as I'm looking at it, there is a total escalation compounded, and you can watch as we go down toward 2040, we get up into the 127% range for that escalation. If we go to the next slide, please. These are numbers directly from OSPI, the ones that start all the way in 1988. And OSPI has been tracking all of the projects across the entire state, modernization and new and lieu. And since 1988, modernization average escalation was 8.8%. Since 1988, new construction escalation has been 6.17%. And then Mortenson Construction started tracking some similar numbers in the Seattle market in 2010. And so in the last decade plus that they've been looking at it, it's been 5% year over year. So if you back up to our escalation slide, that matches with the numbers that our cost estimator is doing. He's trying to be conservative, but you can see that we're at just under 5 for a couple of years, and then he sits at 5 through the duration. Next slide, and next slide. So that's kind of where we got our costs and our assumptions around cost for now. And then what we've done is we've taken that along with the district needs and the current condition of each of the schools and the projected student population, and we've tried to create something that could begin to meet the needs that Sultan is starting to face. Next slide, please. And so we looked at your current 4 sites, and we wanted to look at beginning with demolishing the existing transit center. Just get it out as soon as the vote goes through. It's inexpensive. It's a promise that you made to the community a long time ago. It'll show a lot of trust and a lot of, it'll build a lot of trust with the community. Next slide. After that, we want to look at what it would take to convert Gold Bar to a K4, do an addition and a modernization so that we get all the kids out of portables. The big question around this that still needs to be answered is where do those kids go during construction, and how do we house those kids as we're trying to figure this one out. There might be some ways around this. We'll have to have a conversation as a committee and try and crack this nut. Next slide, please. There is also a DNR property that the district is currently looking at purchasing. That could be a site for a new K4 elementary. whether that's purpose-built, modernization, or some hybrid, or purpose-built or modular or some hybrid of the two. That is completely up in the air still. But that would be another K-4 school. It would be up in the north end of Sultan. Next slide, please. And then we would do cosmetic upgrades to Sultan Elementary School. Next slide. And then convert that to a 5-6. So then you would have two K-4 schools that feed into a 5-6 middle, or that feed into a 5-6, middle, and then you'd go to a 7-8 junior, and then you'd go on to 9 through 12 in high school. Next slide, please. And so what that might start to look like in our construction and our design is that we could begin right after your bond passes, start designing Gold Bar and get that underway, have a little bit of a lag and start designing the new elementary school. And the lag there is primarily to allow the permitting office to not have to intake 2 elementary schools simultaneously, give them a little bit of a gap in that. So we would try and permit Gold Bar prior to permitting the new elementary school. And then that would also create a slight lag in your construction schedule, so the district can then not have to balance 2 sequential construction schedules. You will have construction going on multiple projects at once, but they'll be in different phases. During that time, in the first summer, you could look at doing cosmetic upgrades to Sultan Elementary. You know, when the kids are off site, get some paint done, get some things cleaned up, get stuff all ready to go. That would also be the summer that you demo the transportation. And then later on in early 26, you would start the design and then the construction of some small renovations and repair work in Sultan in order to get that prepped for the 5-6 kids coming in. The goal with that is that we would get all 3 of the schools to open, Gold Bar, the new elementary school, and Sultan Elementary reopened as a 5-6 for the school year starting 27-28. Next slide, please. And then, so what's that going to cost? We've got some still variation in that cost because we haven't figured out what the new elementary school construction type will be. And that does affect our escalation rate of how much we are going to have to escalate that cost. So we'll have to look at that, get that fine-tuned a little bit. But right now on the high end, what we're looking at is just under $94.5 million for a bond. Next slide, please. And I think that's it, yeah.
One of the things I know that we all know that this school we're sitting in right now is one of the ones that needs to be replaced. But the reason that we, as a committee, have kind of worked it this way is that it's not available for SCAP funding for a little while. So we're trying to use the SCAP funding we have to get those in place, like I mentioned before, and then the second phase would be here. And as those SCAP funds become available, that's why we have a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, or that's what we had talked about doing. And we've tried to work it to where like the bond stays flat, everything's even, but as long as we're educating people that this isn't the only thing we're doing, this is the plan on how we're gonna work this, and like I said, everything's gonna be touched. That's kind of a big part of it. It's part of the education piece, but that's something that everybody knows this school needs to go away and have a new one here. But we just, without SCAP funding, it's almost impossible, because you see how much an elementary school costs. The numbers are, it's just hard to comprehend how much a high school costs or how much an elementary school costs. And when you have 4 buildings that need to be replaced or fixed or upgraded, the numbers are just crazy, and we don't want to have, a $10 bond per 1,000 bonds. We're trying to keep it even keel. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at how we worked all this out.
I think I understood most of what the plan involves. You said something early on that to access this gap dollars for the high school would take a complete renovation. How does the state define a complete renovation? I know it's not directly in this plan, but.
Yeah, so they would require modernization, and the reason it needs to be complete is because they tie each of those dollars to a square foot. So there's there's a formulation that OSPI uses where they say if you renovate 1 square foot of the high school, you get 60, I think Sultan gets 63% of $278 per square foot, from what I remember. So what you would have to do is look at the entire 64,000 square feet, which is how they calculate that full fund of the SCAP match. And each one of those square feet will have to get a renovation done, and that renovation, I'd have to clarify what level of renovation you need to hit, but you would have to at least assume that you're gonna have new ceiling, carpet, flooring, lighting, electrical, structural upgrades. You gotta meet code. You're gonna have to redo your energy envelope because there's the new green building code coming down the pipe. So you're gonna have to hit all of those metrics, and that's probably gonna cost you somewhere between $250 and $350 a square foot.
The reason I brought that question up, and I'm certain you can clear this up, on the cost escalation screen for high schools, new or replacement, new is about $453 a square foot, and add or modernize is $340 a square foot, or a difference of $113 between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took the $11.8 million available to us there and put that $113 in, and it builds a building that's, or renovates a building 325 by 325, which is twice as big as our high school is, I think, based on what you just told me. And I'm just wondering why that wouldn't be, when we get to that, why that wouldn't be the most cost efficient.
Yeah, if you've got, let's say the building is 65,000 square feet, and you're gonna do, let's say it's $325 a square foot to renovate, that's gonna cost you $21,125,000 in renovation, and you have roughly $12 million in SCAP funding, so you could renovate it for roughly $9 million.
It would be less, by my math, it would be less to renovate it. And the reason my first question is, I don't mean just paint the building, I mean it would be a completely modernized building.
Yeah.
And that funding, based on the difference between the cost of the two of $113, would fund a 105,000 square foot building with.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding your math, because we're not looking at the cost difference. A renovation number, if we do a full renovation, let's just take the $340 a square foot, and we say it's 65,000 square feet. Multiply that by 340, and then that equals $22,100,000. And so that's the renovation cost.
But if we did that, we would have almost $12 million coming from the state if we did a complete renovation. So our cost then would be $10 million.
Correct.
Which is less than building at $453 a square foot to build the same size building.
Right, and that's why we are not recommending that there be anything done on the high school out of this bond.
Okay. So the thought would be that completely re-enhance that building.
Yeah, at some point in the future, that would be wonderful to do a remodel for that building.
Well, as we have this larger district and as those kids move through, that's where it's gonna hit. And I imagine that next group in 5-10 years is definitely gonna be working on that. Okay, I just want to make certain.
Yeah, that'll
Because I heard
be a
earlier,
future
I
bond.
thought I interpreted comments that it was cheaper to build new. I misunderstood.
No, it's never cheaper to build new, but you do usually you wind up somewhere 70 cents on the dollar, usually from a new to a renovation.
Yeah, that's about what that shows.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't put it in this bond because of the cost?
Because of the cost, correct, because we're trying to keep, the conversation around the CFAC was to try and keep the bond, the initial bond, below 95 million.
And if you're just renovating the high school, you're not getting any new classrooms, and that's a problem with it.
Well, you could, because it's renovation and adding is the same cost on this, on the chart we have in here.
Yeah, that would.
Because
that
some of
would
the
increase-
infrastructure's already there.
Right, that would increase square footage, so you would have to increase your cost. Each square foot would be another $340.
But still less than brand new. And I'm not saying just
Right.
fix up an old junker, I mean a complete renovation and save $10 million, $20 million.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely worth consideration because you have those SCAP fundings. I'm sure that you will want to do that
Yeah,
at
it's a
some
lot
point in
of
the
money.
future.
Questions? Quiet.
I don't have any questions, I'm part of that committee.
Okay, well, thank you. You're ahead. All right, thank you, Ben.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is committee and association reports, and the good, the bad, and the ugly showed up. Do we have anybody from FCA, PSC, Teamsters, PTA, Booster, or ASB here? Going once, gone. Next up, Mike, teaching and learning update.
Just a quick part. Good evening, directors. Just a quick little update on some early learning pieces. I chose to focus on that. So transitional kindergarten, we added 3 spots in the program, blending funding from with SPED. So we have some SPED folks that coming out of the Delia's program here, Changes Preschool. And so work with Dr. Douglas to kind of build a model that will incorporate both populations, so much more equitable, I guess, would be the right way to say that. And the idea is that, we know that transitional kindergarten is a full-day program. It is a program that is showing great promise as those kids move into the schools. A great number of those kids come back from Gobar to this school and start the kindergarten here. So just letting you know that that's a great program that we've chosen to continue to work with. And it is a full year program this year. So we started out at 6 months and we went to 8 and then we went to 9 and then the full 10, I'm counting 10 with the edges on each end. So and I just, that was just one of the pieces. And then I wanted to let you know that we are starting Walk Kids, got all of the kids in. Dave and I talked through me downloading everything and then pushing it all into the Teaching Strategies Gold, which is the platform that they use. And great thing about Teaching Strategies is that the teachers are now able to do more like on an iPad or their phone. They're able to take the data as they're going, and so it uploads into their things. And so heard from one teacher here this afternoon thanking me for getting their kids in, but also saying that the enhancements are really effective for them. So just a couple of things that are going well. I know that the program here, the 2 half-day, or the 2 programs, half days, I think it's going well too. I haven't heard much about that one because that's based in this building. So I just wanted to let you know that we are tackling that early learning goal that you have, and we're trying to make sure we do everything possible.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Next up, Dr. Douglas, Student Special Services update.
I'll save some time, and good evening, directors, as well, here to speed things up for. Hey, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. I wanted to just give you a quick update on our students with special needs. We talk about growing enrollment or lack thereof. I just give you the numbers in the spring. We had 335 students with special needs. We have 343 starting in September, so a number that will probably continue to grow. With that is challenges. The students that are we getting and seeing, as you have all heard in the news, COVID had an impact. It had an impact on our students with special needs as well. The students that we are getting have more challenging needs than I have seen my entire career. There are people that we are having to reach out and consult with because we simply don't have the answers on how to address their needs. So that's a significant challenge this year, along with all the other challenges that we have. But just to be aware of some of those. We have started our sensory program. We have that here at the SES. So that's that sensory program I spoke with you about last year, where we're bringing in the sensory approaches using the multidisciplinary approaches with OTs, PTs, SLPs in the classroom and providing services. And that's had quite a bit of success the last 2 weeks. Friday is probably the biggest success, so if you're ever here on a Friday, I encourage you to come over and see. That's when we bring the dog in. Just give you kind of an anecdotal story. We have a student, as I mentioned, is a student that is one of those that has needs that we just don't know how to address those needs and haven't had the ideas or the solution, I should say, for the last 2 years. Every Friday, the student, I should say, back up here, so the student will not engage with us, period. Will not engage with us. He does self-stim with the paper, but won't engage, won't interact with staff, won't respond, won't make eye contact. On Fridays, the student makes eye contact with the dog, hugs the dog, and interacts for the first time. So it's happened every Friday. It's the only time that we get to see the student really come out and show the potential that student has. So that's why we're in the business and the rewarding part of it. So I want to thank you for that opportunity to add the dog to our program. It's already making a difference. So,
Is there a program to give students such as that their own dog, or does that student have a dog at home?
the student has some animals at home, but it's definitely, I mean, it goes to the research around animal therapy. I think that's something that we'll continue to explore. We definitely have seen the support. We have a couple students that have some significant behavior issues at Gold Bar. We brought the dog down there, and it makes a huge impact. All of a sudden, the behavior increases. And we know that from the research. It's just, as you know, funding drives program, and lack of funding doesn't. So,
Is this the dog that was at the luncheon?
yeah.
Alright.
He has his own
Very cool
ID.
dog, yeah.
I should say she has her
Yeah, I
own
saw the
ID.
ID. That's awesome.
She has her own school ID.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
So, you know, everybody has to have one. So that's kind of the update. And I try not to say the gloom and doom. I want to end on that positive with those students. So it's making a difference, so thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks, directors.
Thanks. A brief discussion on how we get a board community event together so that board members running for those offices can speak to the public.
Yeah, so Dave, we chatted a little bit about this. I think when we went back to trying to get it lined up with the League of Women Voters, you guys do it, correct?
Correct, yeah, the Turk Pride produces it for you.
Turk Pride produces it. At that time, I think there was discussion about trying to have an in-person one here that you could also film. And so it's a matter of, I think, just pulling it together. The community has done this before, I think.
Yes,
we used to do it.
repeatedly, and it's all Snohomish County candidates, not just Sultan
Right.
candidates.
But it's now all online, correct?
Correct, exclusive.
And so I think that's where the discussion of how, I used to go, speaking of this, I used to go to it at the high school, in the Commons is where it was.
We did that,
We've done that for years.
I think, every election cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So-
it's important to give the,
Putting one together, you know, we as a school district are trying to let the community know who's running for the offices, but we don't have any way to force it to happen.
When do the ballots go in the mail? Because it should be the week before that at the latest.
Yeah, it's I think 19 days before actual election day. So when you back up, what is it, November 4th? Somebody have the
I think the
November
ballots
date?
get mailed home on the 21st, October 21st.
October
October
21st.
21st? Okay. It's
so
not
what about
quite-
the week before that?
Yeah.
The week of the 16th?
Okay.
Do we reach out to the Women's League of Voters and see if they have that night available and just,
I thought they were always the ones that worked with Deb Koppel at the Chamber of Commerce to set it up.
that may be the case.
Yeah, Deb said she doesn't have anything to do with it really. She
Anymore?
gave me, somebody else's name, so.
Can the district reach out to Women's League of Voters
Yes,
tomorrow
we
and see
will,
if they
we
have
will
the
do it
16th?
tomorrow, reach out and see where we can go on that.
That would be about.
And we can even host our own, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
fancy or anything, just.
Well, it's great that we have multiple candidates in a lot of races, so it would be nice to have their opinions in front of the community so they can make informed decisions. Next up, approval of Sultan Elementary School Yearbook Club, Lindsay Rodriguez. Welcome.
For this one, I really just wanted to make sure I was available for any questions that anyone had. The idea here is to build a program here at Sultan Elementary School based off the yearbook program that I've previously built at the middle school level. which was extremely successful. Our students at the middle school level were able to go to things that normally were reserved only for high school students. They made incredible yearbooks, which only generated more excitement about selling yearbooks. Here at the elementary school, the idea would be to have it be a program where you've got also a student-driven program where it is part 4th grade, part 5th grade. The idea being behind that it opens it up to another group of students, but also that as 4th grade progresses, they have an opportunity to then turn around and teach the 4th grade that's coming after them and continue the program from there. And have students have a final product. It does align with STEM, which is also, I'm STEM specialist here at Sultan Elementary School, in that it is a very project-based program that it would be. These students would not actually need to pay for it. Obviously, they are making a product that we are going to be selling to the public, and so asking them to pay to join that club is not something that we would be doing. And it is also set up as of this last year. I set up a contract with Walsworth, which is also the company that we use now at the middle school, which I also set up that contract there based on the fact that that's also what the high school uses.
No, we don't.
So this product also goes for, oh, you don't anymore? Oh, well, that's news to me. We're using them at the elementary school this year. We can talk about that later though too. In the meantime, they will still be getting a really awesome education in digital print, in media, in photography, in design, in all the fundraising if they want, it's really gonna be student driven, so once it starts, we'll know exactly where it's gonna go, so.
Questions for Lindsay?
No.
I'll ask for a motion to approve the Sultan Elementary School Yearbook Club.
So moved.
I have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Maybe get together and figure out
I
what
know,
the
we're
best
gonna have
company to
to-
do this with
okay,
is.
Cool. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Dan, the Sodexo contract renewal.
So as you know, Sodexo has been our food service management company as long as this is my 12th year, and that relationship existed at the time that I came on board. We've gone through a couple of rebids. This is the last, each time that you go out for bid, it is for 5 years, but it is 5 one-year contracts, and this is the last of this most recent rebid. This contract has been vetted by OSPI. The price per meal is tied to the consumer price index for meals away from home. I believe it was 4.3% was the number that the cost per meal escalated from prior year.
Questions?
No.
It's a yearly thing, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the Sodexo contract.
So moved.
I have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We'll go out for rebid in probably February.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think I'm up again.
You are. Approval 2023-24 NWRDC Sultan Interlocal Agreement.
So again, a very long-term vendor relationship, business relationship the district has had. NWRDC data center is located in Everett over by Payne Field. They provide support services for us for our fiscal program. Our student program is not through them, but our fiscal program, Skyward and so forth, is all supported, software and related support.
Questions for the contract with NWRDC?
No.
Now ask for a motion to approve that contract.
Make a motion to approve?
I have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, directors.
I think that's a first in the history of the school. We had 3 different people make motions. Not kidding. Next up is the discussion of Sultan House School weekend open gate policy.
Good evening, directors. I was asked to speak on this as a discussion item. I have help.
Yeah, back up.
I do.
The big guns.
We've had some issues at the high school with the current gate policy, or gate, it's not policy, it's how we have the gates open in the evenings and the weekends for community. We've had issues with some vandalism. We've had issues with feces. Weekly. And we would like to.
That's not all, if you wanna know more.
Oh,
Not good.
indulge.
Oh, just gum embedded into the brand new turf, trash cans dumped over, vandalizing football equipment, You know, and you can, the cameras aren't close enough to see. Very frustrating as a coach to go out and the first thing you have to do is have your kids skim the field, make sure there's no landmines. You know, and
Can technology help us in this area, Dave?
We'd certainly add more cameras and better cameras. Absolutely.
The
and
difficulty
probably
is the
monitor.
lighting. Once it's dark, there's some lights behind the stadium on the road and some at the school, the field is dark.
And they're still gonna do the stuff and then you just. So what is it open right now?
Always.
always.
The only
The
time
football
it-
field, the
Yeah.
back roads,
The
everything.
only time it's closed is during school hours.
Isn't it closed when the custodians leave?
No,
I thought that's what we
Yeah,
decided,
that's
that
what we
it was gonna
decided
close
too.
at night.
no.
Maybe that's the first step to see if it makes us better.
Cause we had this discussion and we were gonna close it at night,
That's what I thought.
so it would be closed overnight.
That's how I recall.
Well, then it's closed, open all weekend though. So there's no, we don't have the reason that we chose not to do that is because we didn't close it during the weekend. We don't have staff to come in and close it in the nighttime on the weekend.
Scott Sifferman did say that he'd volunteer all weekend long to do that, however.
Scott's a giving person.
Yes.
I think, well, let's applaud
Very
Scott.
generous.
for
Very
his-
brought up in this board meeting.
Yeah, favorable.
Well, obviously, we need to find a solution because, you know, on one side, we're hearing that we're not allowing access to our facilities enough. And there's valid arguments both ways. It's unfortunate this is happening, but I think at least we can make certain they're locked during the week and then try to come up with a community solution so they're locked at not when it's dark on the weekends.
So lock the gates at dusk?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Is there an electronic system we could engage that so it's push a button and it can be locked from remotely, Dave?
The gate would have to be closed.
Yeah.
So they, yeah.
We have to buy some stuff.
We have some large gates, it'd be difficult, but it's
Yeah.
not impossible.
Let's at least know what that cost is.
Because we want to, even if there's cost on this, we want to minimize costs.
Yeah, yes, we do.
So for the evenings, that's simple, and then for the weekends, short term, I know we're looking at a long term, but would you want it closed Friday night at dusk until Monday morning? No. So we want, I do have a staff person, a grounds guy, work most Saturdays. So the fields could be opened during Saturday.
And, well, Scott's coming in Saturday night to close it, I heard.
Polly's looking for some
Scott
volunteers.
needs to cover Sunday.
Scott has to do Sundays.
The thought
We've got
running
Saturday
through my
covered.
head is close it for a couple of weekends and see what community members have
Just-
kickback.
Just
Because
watch
if
Facebook.
it's-
You'll find out.
Well, if it's kids and doing bad things, they're not gonna be the ones saying, hey, you gotta open the gates for us. It'll be the responsible adults.
Yeah,
That's
I don't think,
necessarily true,
I think
yeah.
most of the kids are not the malicious ones. There are always a group of individuals that
Don't care.
don't care. And we do have some adult community members that I feel are probably
The group
bigger
of,
problem.
the group of kids that initially damaged the chute,
Mhm.
they were probably neighborhood kids, probably looked like about 10, 11 years old. And when they climbed on it to jump up and down like a trampoline and then did some extra stuff on it. And I know that Deputy Lynch tried to see if he could identify closer and wasn't able to get that.
That was the first time.
That was the first time.
Yeah,
that
and then
just-
they came back, or somebody came back.
Can we close the big gates Friday night at dusk or after the football game and have electronic 2 gates or 1 gate that's open to the field that's just the small where you can walk in, so some people want to use it to play soccer on the field during the light hours, and then that gate locks, because we don't need them parking 70 cars, and that's,
We can look into a contraption for that, yeah.
In the meantime, can we
It's a
close?
safety- It's a safety issue.
to our football players because they're walking around in
Absolutely,
feces.
absolutely.
And they're stepping on it, and they're tackling on it, and we're throwing footballs on it.
So
And
I understand what we should do for a long-term fix to research some things, but short-term, what's my short?
Lock it at dusk.
Can we lock it at dusk and then on Friday night it's locked? The janitor, whoever custodian comes in on Saturday, unlocks it for the day, locks it up, it's locked again until Monday.
Yeah, that's a temporary fix until we find another solution. It's not open on Sundays.
Okay.
And as soon as we could get a man gate, so if somebody wants to run around the track on Sunday afternoon, they can do
Can the
that.
district post something,
We'll put some
let
up.
people know?
An electric fence around the football
So,
field to get zapped.
Daniel's working Saturdays?
Correct.
Say why, it's, people have
Right.
ruined, and it's costing more money.
The turf's expensive and kids.
Well, we want
are
to take,
important.
it's
We need to
community
keep their
investment, so you
safety.
got a balance between open for use, but we also have a responsibility to take care of it. And, that's a balance we're trying to strike, and
Just can't have nice things.
Thank you, guys.
A motion sensor with some sprinklers that anytime they come near it, they die.
The sprinklers went away with the grass.
Yeah.
Paintball.
Yeah, but it has some drainage.
Yeah.
Just paintball guns.
Paintball guns.
Then
with
we
motion
identify who
sensors.
they are, so right away they're gonna have little red and pink.
Great
It's
idea.
like fire poles.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys. And thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, Mr. Red Snyder and Mrs. Bradford.
Go Turks, 4-0. Are we gonna go 5-0?
Yes,
Very good.
yes. Black and Blue Bowl.
Oh, we
is coming up
definitely
Friday.
need.
Oh,
So up there, there's going to hopefully be a Rooters bus, so we'd love to see some of our administration.
All of that supervise the.
Supervise the Rooter bus. Yes, we remember those. We remember those. Thank you, guys.
It's huge.
I know.
Okay, approval of college and high school contract. Dan, you have this?
Yeah.
This is a repeat contract?
this is a repeat. And I pointed out the one change that was there that identified that they will provide us a list of the kids that don't have to pay, is my interpretation of it.
Questions?
No.
That'd be the case, I'll ask for a motion to approve our college and high school contract.
So moved.
Man, it was a
You,
three-way
you,
rush.
you won. Maybe it's because the speed of sound, you're closer to it. I have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Approval of DNR resolution.
There's two parts to this. This is a resolution that proves to DNR that the board has authorized the purchase of the property, and the second part is the purchase and sale agreement. My recommendation is that you approve that. In the purchase and sale agreement marked in red, you will see that there's some ways out if we get to a point where through the feasibility process that I'm still working through,
It won't work.
that we don't do it. I think from an investment standpoint, it is still a good deal, but we're about trying to build a school, not invest in
Correct.
properties. So, coming up on the 19th of October, I have a meeting with Snohomish County and the City of Sultan. Dan and Charlie will be part of that, and part of that meeting is to determine, as the county is working on the urban growth area, a comprehensive plan, to get this moved into the growth area for Sultan, so we could access sewer.
Time's that meeting?
4 to 5 p.m. And I can get you involved if you're available.
No, I just know I'd call at 6 and see how it go.
Yeah, so it's 4 to 5 p.m. with quite a few folks will be in it. It's in Zoom.
Great. Questions?
Nope.
Then I'll ask for a motion to approve the DNR resolution.
So moved.
Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, that's probably the best land deal we're ever gonna see. Approval of additional Jewel settlement.
I got this, came in an email just out of the blue. I called them up and said, well, this seems less than what you told us, and what they informed me at the time was that this is an additional person that's part of the deal, and so this 14,000 they're speaking of there is in addition to the 45 to 50 that was estimated for the initial
It's
allocation.
like $1 a page for what they
Yeah,
did.
it's about what it is, and once lawyers' fees come in, they might be soliciting money from us, who knows, you know?
Well, I'm glad we got involved in this. You know, every dollar helps, and it pays us back for some of the technology we had to install.
Yeah.
Any questions about our additional Juul settlement?
No.
I'll ask for a motion to approve the additional Juul settlement.
So moved.
And a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Update on cell phone policy feedback. Gigi and Dan.
So I can start. I went up to the high school on Friday, and, well, there's two parts. Let me start by my own observation first. You know, it was refreshing to visit classrooms and not see cell phones. That was very refreshing. That was prominently obvious at the middle school and definitely in classrooms at the high school, though at lunchtime it is permissible for high school students to. Some of the feedback I've gotten is that kids are interacting with each other more. At Friday, I went up to the high schools, you know, got a committee that looks at behavior and impacts and different things, and phones were part of that discussion. And I can't quote exactly what the number of referrals have been, but it's not as significant as you would think. Doesn't mean that it's been perfect, it's a work in progress, but I think generally speaking, it is better than I would expect right now. That's my understanding.
We have a high school teacher in there.
6 referrals for cell phone. It's phenomenal.
I heard from somebody that I live with that she's literally, the bell is ringing, they're still in discussion, and it's like,
Yes.
oh crap, we gotta go to the next class, and they're.
So what's interesting that, you know, maybe there's some real truth to this, is a teacher said, cell phones were probably part of our problem all along. You have kids that are able to communicate and they're in different areas of the school, and 3 hours later they're fighting somewhere, you know, and with no phones as part of that whole deal, you know, we're seeing more engagement together of kids, and that's what we want, more engagement and learning. And the part about still being in discussion, hey, that's music to my ears, because these, you know, kids are kind of tethered to them. It's been really difficult, you know. And so it's been positive all the way around.
You just need to get the administrators to be off their phones when they're visiting our schools.
Good point.
Must be talking about your wife.
She follows the same rules everybody
I
else
will
does.
have to let her know about that.
She does, she does. It's actually, that's the nice part about it, is when staff have modeled it as well. To the point where as staff, well, I sent you this, well, yeah, you were on prep. I don't have prep till 7 period, I'm not gonna see it till then. So it's a good, six out of what, 500 some odd, by this time last year, at the high school, there was that many fights. We have not had a fight there yet.
There's a reason almost 80% of high schools have changed their policy on this in the last couple of years.
It's smart. It's great.
We would have had this, had COVID not struck, because we were working on this policy change.
We were, it was
We were
heading down the alley.
We went from that to meeting at Varnell's establishment at 10:30 at night and closing the schools.
Yeah.
All right, next up is discussion of policy 1400, meeting conduct, order of business, and quorum. Dan and Gigi. Or did you have anything else to add, Gigi, I'm sorry, to the cell phones?
No.
Okay, sorry. Carrie.
So this particular policy came up through discussion from our WASDA, from
Tim.
I forgot his first name, Tim Gurcha. And you know, the discussion was, what does the board want to, or do you think should be included in there in regard to community input, amount of time speaking, we will respond or not respond in the meeting, is that too inflexible, and really wanted to put it up there for discussion for everybody to take a look, because coming up in November is the real deal, which is basically 2 months away, and then we will have 2 new board members for sure, and 3 new positions that will change over permanently.
A couple things. This is not our first reading, this is a pre-study session, as I understand it. it's too long. There's a, I don't know that this needs to be this long, and some things can get taken out, like the part in yellow, we don't qualify for the under 400 million evaluation or less than 3,000 persons, so I think we can shorten it up and change the intention. The total time for public comment period is 30 minutes, you know, that's, we could have that discussion now, but there will be a new board in the future. I don't think,
Well, there's the whole public comment script, and I don't think that's in the packet.
What were you looking at, Russ?
in the meeting conduct order of business,
That's a policy.
right,
I
the
think
policy,
that- yeah.
that's the part I'm thinking. It can be weeded down to the things that don't really matter to our district because
Yeah.
we're bigger than that.
But I think the public comment script
This
is
script-
probably the most important one. And most of the districts that I've researched and looked at, they do something similar. It's this one.
Yeah, and I didn't get
The
this in
laws
my
on it.
packet, I just got this tonight, I
It's
believe.
because you're not special enough to get it, I'm sorry.
I've
You
heard
wanna-
that before.
You can pass that down.
I have it now, but
Oh,
I
the
didn't have it
Wausau
before you
one?
walked in tonight.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't have that one.
It's the public comment script.
That's different than this.
What is it that you have? Is that the
Mine's on
policy?
Sultan School District font or letterhead. This is
It might
ours.
say the same thing.
I asked Kayla to put this.
Okay,
on
it
you.
says the same thing.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, that, I mean, it's a little long, but,
This wasn't what I was referring to.
okay.
I was
But this
referring to
still
the
is a
policy.
little long, but I think this is something that I see most of the other districts do. And I think it's, according to Tim, it's really important and needed.
I think the thing for the board to consider between now and the first reading is whether we want to limit public comment to 30 minutes, a maximum of 3, because there are times when more than 10 people want to speak, and it can get long, but you might consider making that a little longer. I can think of a few meetings, I was speaking with Dan earlier, we had an incident where a middle school child tried to end their life, and we had more than 10 people that want to speak at that. I don't have a problem with 2 or 3 minutes, but letting more voices in the room would be my thing for you to consider. Not 2 hours, but maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and with the ability of the board chair, whoever that will be, to extend it if there is a public need for that.
Yeah.
Some wording for that. There are incidents that do come up that demand more attention, I think.
Well, I think if everybody can take a look at it, read it, see if you have any feedback. and let us know.
It's always fun. Any questions, anything else on that? Okay. You have in your packet the policies we'll be reviewing on the 10/23 meeting. That's that policy of 1400, policy 5201, drug-free schools, community workplace, policy 6700, nutrition, health, physical education. And Dan, you moved your superintendent's comments up. Did you have anything else to add to the enrollment in your?
I don't know, I would just engage, I don't know if the board members, individual board members commented to the extent that you want to, but we can certainly take your input. I mean, we're gonna arrive at a number and a plan to support cutting that number out of the budget. You know, that's it. And there's some stuff we can do really easily.
I think show us the plan and give us a couple options, some things that.
And as we move on, it'll get harder. You know, there's things that we want to do, and, I think when you think about and reflect on this whole thing from last year, we have typically, and part of this is based on our own experience, always set enrollment pretty conservatively, you know? And it's not the first time when we didn't set it conservatively that we haven't missed. I mean, meaning when you miss by, sometimes it fluctuates 20 to 25 up or down, you don't know. Missing by, we budgeted for growth in our regular programs of 67 kids. Had we brought a cut budget or even a flat budget, it certainly would have been conservative and acceptable, but many people would have thought, what are you thinking? I mean, there's signs all over the place that you're gonna likely have more kids. You never know that until the first day of school, you just don't. And so the risk of that is kind of where we find ourselves. And that is that we can't sustain a path that we're on because our expenditures exceed our revenue right now. And so we've got to reverse that and, adjust mid-flight for the first half of the plan, and then when we go into the 24-25 school year, you adjust through reducing enough expenditures through human resources and others that you were able to build back the revenue that was lost. Because in our business, we don't sell a product, we serve students and educate them. And we can't spend more money than they bring in.
It'll be curious to see what Flow Analytics shows. And my advice for the board going forward is, and I always have been, I've always pushed to keep it low. And I would always keep that in the back of your pocket, because it's a lot easier, it's unfortunate, but it's a lot easier if a couple extra kids show up than what we're dealing with right now, because we're literally cutting the majority of what we assumed our excess cash, our 1 point or a 4% budget.
And
it's-
we thought we budgeted conservatively.
I didn't, but the board was, we went with that, and there was reason that the board believed that. It's just a really odd time out there in the retail market and what people are doing. And the retail market's being affected by politics, and I think enrollment's being affected by politics.
I agree.
And when we see that there's 10 kids for 6 households, that's 10 kids from 0 to 5, they don't show up. And so if you consider a kid 0 to 18, I would cut that number down from 10 to maybe 6 for 6, something like that.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, please, everybody's welcome.
I want to tell you guys congratulations. You did a fantastic job on grade 5.
Grade 5,
Yeah, did you look at it?
how is it exactly?
Yeah, they budgeted 149 and the number came in at 149.
So good job on grade 5.
Hey,
You know-
kindergarten, not so good.
Not so good. Entire.
I think looking back at it, we've talked about this a lot. We've done pretty well over time being conservative and hitting the overall number. Knowing where the kids are is a challenge. That's a challenge.
It is.
And our kindergarten number, that's the lowest that it's been since 10-11. Because 2010-11 was the last time that we had that few kindergartners start in this district. So it's
Now you have to wonder next year, well,
12
should
years.
hold it down, or some kids sitting at home waiting until they're 6.5,
Yeah.
because the state says you can wait till you're 8?
8 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, kindergarten was certainly a surprise.
I think that there's.
Yeah.
I
We
was
have
gonna
a
ask
crew,
it, Dan.
we have crews coming back because it didn't work, and we have new crews going out.
I would think at, that younger age, it might, a parent would be
Yeah.
easier to.
I'm qualified for kindergarten.
Yeah.
When you get to about 3rd grade, Any other business for this evening?
No.
Okay.
What?
Discussion of transitional.
Discussion on transition of board members. We kind of talked about that. I think that, I don't have a lot to add here other than, what is our current structure right now? We will do so Russ is the president, Gigi's the vice,
And Gigi's also ledge rep, aren't you?
Gigi's the ledge rep. What's your WIAA?
Yes, I believe so.
And then Cindy is curriculum?
Curriculum, and these two also did evaluation
Yeah.
of superintendent.
Oh,
Cindy.
that's right, evaluation superintendent. So then when we make the transition,
You're gonna need a new president,
you're gonna need a new president?
and you'll vote on president, vice president. You won't vote on ledge rep unless you've only done it for a year, because it's a 2-year term.
It only brings we only have 2 experienced board members.
Yeah.
And so that's the
So-
question of, how do you address that, moving forward? And I don't know,
Well, discussion between those two would probably be appropriate.
okay,
Anything else?
that's it.
And certainly, the winners of the election will have some say in that, because they'll be the
And I think the
majority.
reason for the discussion is unless you have 5 brand-new board members because some real anomaly happened, the chances of a first-year board member being in a chair or vice chair situation are slim and almost none.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
Sometimes second year, I think.
Yeah.
If, Gigi, you were second year? Yeah. You guys will do great. And when you don't, I'm gonna come to the meetings, and I'm gonna use all 3 of my minutes. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Could you reach out to, can we reach out to that group that